This is Melanie Shapiro. I am an immigration lawyer in Norwood, Massachusetts. My office was founded in 2014, so we're going on 7 years this summer that we've been representing people. I've been an attorney for almost 10 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with people from over 60 different countries. I work with clients who are in the United States, all over the US, and around the world. So if you are tuning in, we have consultations available virtually. We are seeing some people in person. So give us a call at 781-461-0100 or send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and we can get you set up. So I'm just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to join. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the office, about some news about our clients, and about some immigration legislation. There's a lot going on that front. I've been attending the AILA, which is the American Immigration Lawyers Association conference, so the AILA New England conference this week. So I have a lot of updates from the conference that I really want to share with everybody. So take some time to send me your questions. I hope everybody is doing well and having a good week. So anyway, with that said, I want to just talk a little bit about what's going on with the office. So we found a new space for our second office in Worcester, Massachusetts. We have a really large client base in Worcester, and I'm so excited to be able to offer a space in Worcester. So our Worcester office is opening on May 1st, and it's going to be located at 446 Main Street, which is right downtown where the Santander Bank is. And we're going to be up on the 20th floor with great views, and I'm really looking forward to being able to make our services more accessible for our clients out in the Worcester area. So then the other update on news for the office is we've had a lot of wins lately, which is awesome. I had court yesterday for an 11-year-old boy. We got another court date for him, so that's really good. And then the other one is we received we had a really tough naturalization case. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. If you're just joining in, this is Melanie Shapiro. I'm an immigration lawyer in Norwood, Massachusetts, and I represent people from over 60 different countries in the United States. I have clients all around the world. So hit me up with a message if you have a question. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay, so I had that naturalization interview earlier this week, and I was really worried about my client because he has some serious memory issues. He's from Italy, a really nice guy. And I am so happy that he passed the interview. So now he's a citizen, and we're going to be applying for his wife, who is from the Dominican Republic, for her green card. So it's just nice. They have one baby. They have another baby on the way next month. So it's nice to be able to see people have that security, and also be able to keep families together. The other case that we won was for a 10-year green card for our client from Ireland. We also got the 10-year green card for our client from Canada, and we're working with a lot of different asylum seekers from all over the world, trying to get their cases sped up so that they can be on an expedited list and be able to reunite with their families, bring their families here, stay safe in the United States. So those are some of the cases that we have. We also received a green card for a retired doctor from Kazakhstan. She's the mother of one of our other clients who's a US citizen. So all good news this week. So I want to answer your questions. I want to hear what are your concerns about immigration. next week in Congress, we are having a whole bunch of immigration legislation is being handled. Hi, Sinetica. Nice to see you again. Um, anyway, so I'm going to go through some of that. I mentioned we have the Worcester office opening on May 1st. We'll probably be seeing clients out there 1 or 2 days a week, and I'm going to have one of my paralegals is going to be out there all the time to do appointments, to receive your documents, to help you with your cases. So very good. All right, so I'm going to start off by talking about some of the legislation that's pending, and I'm going to talk about what I learned at the conference so far and answer your questions. So send those in. So one of the bills that's going to be heard next week is called the Dream and Promise Act. That was initially introduced in March of 2019, and it passed the House on June 4th, 2019. But because of the basically the Republicans in the Senate, this bill has been just sitting there. So it's going to be heard again now that we have a Democratic majority in the Senate. I'm very hopeful that this will pass. What this bill is going to do is going to cancel any deportation for the DACA kids, Dream Act kids, and grant conditional resident status for 10 years for those who have DACA. And then it can be removed and become a permanent green card after the kids complete 2 years of a uniform service or they complete their educational program. So this is a really great opportunity for anyone with DACA. A similar benefit is available for those who have TPS. So it would cancel removal against TPS or deferred enforcement departure recipients, such as Liberians. And then they could apply for the green card after they pass some background checks. So very promising for a lot of people. The other piece of legislation before Congress next week is called the No Ban Act. And this is very similar to what President Biden did with the executive order to remove the so-called Muslim ban. So the No Ban Act would bar the president from limiting immigration based on religion, so the so-called Muslim ban. So even though he did this executive order to get rid of the Muslim and African bans, it's an executive order. What this does is make it a permanent law that would ban the president in the future from barring immigration based on religion. And also the No Ban Act is going to increase diversity from the diversity visas from 55,000 to 80,000 per year. So that is the No Ban Act. So we have the Dream and Promise Act, which we talked about, and the No Ban Act. Now, President Biden introduced the Citizenship Act of 2021. It was introduced on February 18th, and there's a lot of really great stuff in there, but there's so much stuff in there that I doubt that it will get passed as a whole. I think that the best strategy is going to be to break it up into pieces and try and get pieces passed of it. Otherwise, we've tried to have comprehensive immigration reform through many administrations, but because it just gets tied up because of some of the details. And it seems like President Biden is open to breaking it up and open to working across the aisle to make some of these changes. So I'm going to briefly talk about what is in the Citizenship Act of 2021, some of the highlights, and what I think about them. So the first one is this 8-year pathway to citizenship, which I'm very excited about. So basically, anyone who is undocumented and who passes certain background checks can apply for a temporary legal status for 5 years until they get their green card. Then 3 years after that, they can apply to become a citizen. Anyone who is an immigrant farm worker who has DACA or TPS would get their green card right away. So it would be a fast track for them to get citizenship. I think this is great, and I think that this is kind of piggybacking off of the Dream and Promise Act, where DACA and TPS recipients would be able to get this conditional status. It's just strengthening that for those people, but it's also included for anyone who's undocumented and passes certain background checks, that they could apply for this temporary legal status towards this pathway for citizenship. So that's great. I really hope that passes. That's a huge ticket item. The other thing in this part of the legislation is that President Biden wants to change the term alien to non-citizen, which I think is a great idea, especially given all the xenophobia and all of the racism and everything that has come into light, especially these last 4 years. I think that this is a really good nod to acknowledging that immigrants make up are part of the American community, and they're an important part of our community, so, in our country. So I think that that's really important. I really don't like the term alien. I feel like it treats someone who's undocumented or who's a non-citizen as the other, and I think it's really important to change the way that we discuss that, and so I'm happy about that change. I think that that's probably likely to go through. The language in the Immigration and Nationality Act is so archaic. So there are a lot of terms like alien or crimes involving moral turpitude or habitual drunkard that are so outdated and have a lot of negative connotations associated with them. So I think language is really important. The other thing that President Biden is trying to do in the Citizenship Act of 2021 is to keep families together. We saw during the Trump administration that families were separated at the border, that kids were in cages, that there's still hundreds of children who have not been reunited with their parents, and they've been lost in the system. So keeping families together is really important for that and many other reasons. So what President Biden is proposing is to clear some of the backlogs and waiting times and increase the per country caps. Right now, it's taking so long for some of the cases to go through. So for example, this is crazy, is for siblings to petition for one another, they're waiting 14 years. So sometimes clients will come to my office and they'll say, oh, my sister is a US citizen, can she apply for me? Say, sure, but you're gonna wait forever for your case to be ready for you to consular process. So one of the things that Biden is trying to do, which is awesome, is provide a temporary visa so that family members can wait for their cases to become current while they're in the United States to keep families together. So I don't know if that's going to pass, but it does sound like a really good idea. He wants to eliminate the 3 and 10-year bans. So basically what happens is if you come to the United States on a visa and you overstay for more than 6 months, you're barred from coming back for 3 years. And if you overstay for 1 year, you're barred from coming back for 10 years. So these are really serious consequences. So I don't know if it's going to be completely eliminated, because I think on the other side of the aisle, they might say, oh, so what are the consequences if you overstay? You know, there has to be something. So I'm not too optimistic about that. Biden wants to expand the categories of family members to include permanent partnerships. So this would be a really big help for LGBTQ families because, for example, I have a client who we won his asylum case. We want to bring his very long-term partner to the United States, but his partner's from Uganda, where it's against the law to be gay, and there's absolutely no same-sex marriage, so he wouldn't meet this category even though they've been together for like 20 years. So this would really help someone like my client, because you can then apply for your spouse or permanent partner. So I am super excited about that part. Embracing diversity is another part, and that's the No Ban Act. So I think that that was probably pulled out of this comprehensive bill. The No Ban Act is going to be heard next week. The other thing is promoting integration and citizenship, which is good because it'll make it a lot easier for people to become citizens if they're provided more resources. So there, for example, there'll be funding for English as a second language classes. There's a provision in there to protect workers from exploitation. There's a provision in there for smart border control. So you know how President Trump made this big to do about the wall. I want to put up a wall over the whole border. Biden is planning to, instead of doing a border wall, investing more money in technology to monitor and secure the border, which makes a lot of sense. And it's better for the ecosystems over there, for the animals that live along the border. Sin Etiqueta, it says, "Hi, I want to know what is happening with the ban. Are they going to be lifted?" Yes, the ban, the Muslim and African so-called ban has been lifted. The other ban, but it's been limited to immigrant visas, not the non-immigrant visas. So that's still something that we're waiting on, but that is set to expire on March 31st. Unfortunately, Biden had an opportunity to lift that as well, even though it's just a couple of weeks, but has decided to wait for it to run out. So that's what's happening with that. Thanks for the question. So with the smart border controls, we said stop the border wall construction and use money for technology and infrastructure, and also use money to crack down on criminal organizations like the narco traffickers. Hey, Jingo, how are you? Nice to see you on here. Then the other one is that he wants to invest some money in addressing the root causes of migration. So, with the conditions in Central America and so forth, to try and help resolve some of those issues that they're having that are causing the migration, like the gang violence, poverty, and so forth, so that we won't have as many people trying to migrate to the United States because they won't need to, because things will be more secure in their countries. So I don't know that we're going to get money passed for that, but I think it's a good idea. The other thing that he's doing is that he's trying to support asylum seekers and other vulnerable people. One of the ways that he wants to do this is by eliminating the 1-year filing deadline for asylum claims. I don't know how this is going to play out, right? Because right now, if you're applying for asylum, you have to apply within 1 year of arriving in the United States. But because it's kind of gauging the urgency and the credibility of your case and your fear of return. But some of the problems with this is that sometimes people have no idea about this 1-year filing deadline. There's no right to counsel for immigrants, which is another thing that there's some legislation about that I'm hopeful will get passed. You have a right to an attorney, but you have to pay for an attorney. And for a lot of people, especially asylum seekers who've left everything behind, they have nowhere to go sometimes, they have no resources, many of them. That's a real problem. So we're hoping to get right to counsel, kind of like criminal defense attorneys. There's the public defender, so you can be assigned an appointed attorney to represent you. So I'm very hopeful that something like that will pass at some point. So again, back to this, the 1-year filing deadline, people don't know about the deadline, and also some people are so traumatized and are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder that they're not able to function, let alone think about trying to file an application for asylum. And it's sometimes because of the trauma they suffered, it's just too raw, too soon to talk about it. So we've had to use a lot of different legal strategies to try and get around the 1-year filing deadline. So I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know if that'll pass. Then this, which I'm very hopeful will be something that passes at some point, is that Biden wants to increase the number of UNT visas available. So right now there's only 10,000 U visas available every year, and a U visa is for victims of violent crime. So right now the backlog is somewhere between 5 to 10 years to get your U visa. So he's trying to triple the amount of U visas available from 10,000 to 30,000. So that's awesome. The other, so that's what's going on a federal level. On the state level, which is something I'm so hopeful that will pass, is this driver's license bill, right? So I have the whole driver's license issue in Massachusetts is very frustrating. Right now, if you do not have a lawful status, you cannot get a driver's license. So how does that make any sense? Like, people need to drive, people need to go to work, people need to take their kids to school, people need to go grocery shopping. You can't expect people to just take a bus. It's not accessible for everybody. Depending on where you live, you might not have public transportation, and if you do, it's not consistent, it's hard to deal with. There's a lot of issues with it. So people are going to drive anyway, whether they have a license or not. And I think that it's a lot safer for everybody if people have to get a driver's license, go get an eye exam, pass the eye test, learn about the rules of the road before they go and get on the road. So they're going to be driving anyway. May as well make sure they are safe to drive. And it's really like arbitrary too, because people are going to be driving, they get pulled over for driving without a license, they get something on their criminal record for driving without a license, which is kind of like a joke of, okay, you get arrested for driving without a license. Generally what happens is you go to court, the district attorney says, hey, does your client want to pay a fine? Yeah, okay. And then they dismiss the case. So what's the point of that? So the whole title of the act is called An Act Relative to Work and Family Mobility During and Subsequent to the COVID-19 Emergency. So persons who do not provide proof of lawful presence will be eligible for a driver's license if they meet all other qualifications. So that seems like a no-brainer to me. I know that there was a similar piece of legislation in 2017 that Governor Baker wasn't supportive of, but I think that he's supportive of this one. So, fingers crossed, write to your state senators and representatives to make sure that this goes through, because this is super important. So those are all of the legislative updates. So please send me in your questions. I'm going to start going through some of the questions now. The first question I have is, my husband is an Army veteran who, can I apply for parole in place since he was in the military? Would I have to do adjustment of status because he is a veteran? I'm pretty sure you can do parole in place for that, but send me a message and I could provide you with some more details and confirm that information for you. The next question I have is, my brother-in-law asked me to be his co-sponsor. Is that possible? I'm an American citizen and my wife is a legal permanent resident. If so, do we need to provide our info of both or just mine? So if you are a citizen or a lawful permanent resident, you can be someone's joint sponsor for their family petition and adjustment of status. So in this situation, on the form, it's going to ask for what is your household income. That's when you consider the adjusted gross income on your tax returns. If you need both of your incomes to overcome any sort of income deficiency on the affidavit of support, then your wife would also have to join in on the forms. If you make enough by yourself, then that's fine. You would put your individual income on there. Thank you for your question. The next question I have is, does having a mental health disorder mean that the embassy will deny you? Thank you in advance to those who will respond. So the only time that a mental health disorder is an issue in terms of being admissible to the United States is if you are a danger to other people. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so let me know if you have any more questions. I am also pulling up some notes. I want to share some information with you too about the conference. So the conference I've been going to this week is for the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and for our New England chapter. I'm part of the New England chapter. I'm on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Um, the ALA is amazing, and I'm really happy to be part of this bar association. So we were talking about some of the issues that have been coming up, like the public charge. I know that people are hoping that President Biden will get rid of this public charge rule that we have for President Trump. I think that it's going to happen, but it's going to be a lot slower than we had hoped for, because the problem is that there was a lawsuit pending before Biden issued the executive order on the public charge to reverse it, and the Department of Justice has been slow to act on it. And now the Supreme Court granted certiorari, which means they've decided to accept this case. So now the next step is we have to see what happens with the Supreme Court of the United States. And look, I think at this time the agencies are going to be preparing something new. With the executive order that Biden issued, the public charge rule is still in effect if you're doing any applications with USCIS for the green card, but it's been stopped if you're coming in through consular processing. The next issue is TPS, temporary protected status. So we're waiting on guidance for Venezuelans on the deferred enforcement of Venezuelans. We are also looking for adding additional countries. There's some talk of adding Guatemala, Cameroon, Mexico, Mauritania to the countries for temporary protected status. And we're looking to reauthorize Honduras and Nicaragua. Yemen, Somalia, Syria, Sudan, and South Sudan have not been disrupted. Those have been extended. We're waiting for some more redesignation on Syria. So that's what's happening with the TPS. The other thing is there's a new memo, the Johnson memo, and in this memo it lays out enforcement priorities, which is super news because it's been now with the enforcement priorities, it's only focusing on national security concerns, people who are in danger, and people who are recent entrants and overstays after November 2020. And so this is providing an opportunity for attorneys and for respondents to request their release based on the new priorities in the memo, and also to request cancellations of notice of to appear in immigration court. So there's a lot of good tools that we have out of this Johnson memo. This is temporary though, it's going to expire, so we are going to have to wait for new guidelines to be issued, but for right now this is pretty awesome. Then Biden is trying to phase out the Stay in Mexico program, the MPP program. So there's no new enrollments in this program. The people who are at processing centers are, in the MPP program are being processed out of Matamoros, Brownsville, El Paso, San Diego, and Laredo is coming. And then in the Rio Grande Valley, tender age children 6 years old and under are being allowed to enter, and they're going straight to bus stations or to family detention centers. The average wait time for minors right now in the Office of Refugee Resettlement and Detention Centers is 31 days. So that is going down. And then the other stuff that's going on is we had some agents from the different immigration-related agencies. So we had someone from Customs and Border Protection. This is the people at the border. And then we had a case recently that wasn't great out of the First Circuit regarding electronic devices and searching them. So this wasn't really good. But the officer said that they're expecting more people because of the executive order reversing travel bans to increase the number of people entering. And then I've had this question come up a lot of people who are outside of the United States who have green cards who've been out for more than 6 months because of COVID or other reasons, who are worried about their green cards being revoked because of this, and also worried about re-entering the United States. So it sounds like CBP is being pretty flexible and understanding. They're looking at the totality of the circumstances, like where have you been? Why have you been out so long? What is your previous history of presence in the US, your ties to the US versus your home country? So that's good news that they're being pretty flexible about that. The other person that was there was from the National Visa Center, and cases are way, way up. There's a serious backlog. For example, the amount of cases last year at this time were like 75,000, and now we're over 400,000. So that's why things are taking so long. So there have been, serious challenges with that. The ICE agent was there. He said that with these priorities, like I mentioned, they're looking as, is someone a clear and immediate danger? Those are the people that they're picking up. So that's good. And then with USCIS, the district director was there, and he said that there still emergency appointments are available. So if you do have an emergency, like a medical emergency and need a stamp in your passport to travel, that you can walk in for that. And then for naturalization cases, they're working on moving towards same-day naturalization. So like you go in for your interview and then you get to do the oath on the same day. So that's what's up with the agencies. That's pretty much all of the information I have. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew everything that I know from what I learned at the conference. So I'm going to check the messages. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. And then, of course, as always, just send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. If you have a question or if you want to set up a consultation and we could talk about your case, you can call the office, 781-461-0100, and set up an appointment with me. I'll be doing appointments in Worcester starting May 1st. That's our move-in date for the Worcester office. We'll have 2 locations, Norwood, Massachusetts, Worcester, Massachusetts, and we can meet with you if you're anywhere in the world via Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp. Okay, I have a couple more questions. My dad got deported about 8 or more years ago. Would he still be able to come back if his case was minor? I'm not really sure what the case being minor means, but if someone has been deported, then they have a ban of 10 years outside of the US. And if you want to come back before the 10-year ban, you have to file an I-212 waiver, which is permission to re-enter the US. So you can do that for permission to re-enter before the 10 years has been up. So I hope that helps with your question. The next question I have is, can schools ask about immigration status? Can ICE enter schools? No. So schools are not allowed to ask about your immigration status. You cannot be denied access to free public education. There's a U.S. Supreme Court case called Plyler v. Doe, which says exactly that. Everyone has a right to free public education, whether or not you have documents or not. So you can always say that they're not allowed to ask that, or you say, yeah, just they're not allowed to ask that. I have had situations where schools have challenged registration for undocumented students, so we've had to fight back against that. I've sent letters, called the administrative offices to make sure the kids are getting what they're entitled to, free public education. The next question is, how long does it take to get a work permit? 3 to 5 months is the processing time right now. The next question is, if I have a green card, can I petition my parents? No. So you have to be a US citizen in order to apply for your parents. Thank you for your question. All right, so I think that might be all the questions. I'll give you guys a minute if you have any other questions. Happy to answer your questions. This was a special program I was hopping on today to just provide these legislative updates. I will be back Monday at noon, and then I'm planning to do my Spanish program next week, Miércoles con Melanie, a Wednesday at 4 o'clock. I didn't do it last night because I've been attending this conference, so it was during the conference time. Okay, great. Thank you for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great day. Have a great weekend.